So would the Boston Bruins trade Brad Marchand? That's an interesting conversation to have at this point in time. And there was a YouTube channel that I am subscribed to, Bruins Diehards, that made a video on it. Now, I haven't watched it yet. I kind of want to do a reaction to it. I've done these on the channel before. So before I get into the video, the link to their video and their channel will be down below in the description. I feel like this person makes very, very good content, especially if you follow the Bruins. So, it'd be really cool if you check them out, in my opinion. I don't know the guy personally, so this is just, I don't know. I just think he makes good content, and I think he deserves a shout out. So, would the Bruins trade Brad Marchand? Actually, before we drop a like here, make sure I do that.
If history has taught us anything, the Boston Bruins are not afraid to make big trades. They have traded the likes of Phil Esposito, Joe Thornton, Tyler Seguin, just to name a few. They're one of the most respected organizations in the NHL. Whether we like it or not, the Bruins are at a crossroads and must think about their future. They also must decide if Brad Marchand is a part of that future or if he even wants to be a part of the new Boston Bruins future.
Quick, I gotta say, I love your backdrop. Bruins Diehards, if you watch this video, I love your backdrop. It's friggin' neat. It's way better than my plain-ass looking backdrop.
In this video, I'm going to cover everything that is being said around Marchand possible extension and give my thoughts on whether the Boston Bruins should trade Brad Marchand. So buckle up, Bruins fans. I'm here to give you the latest info on your beloved Boston Bruins. If you've been liking my Bruins content, please leave me a like and subscribe. If you've already done so, thank you, and let's get into it.
Love the graphics.
Last season, the Boston Bruins decided to not trade Jake DeBrusk, even though they knew he wasn't planning on re-signing with the Boston Bruins. Yep. I have no clue what the offers were on DeBrusk, but I can tell you that I said last year they should have traded him, and I still think they should have done it. I think it's different with the likes of Heinen and Forbort because I don't doubt for a minute they had intentions to re-sign Heinen, but they spent that money on Zadorov, and they ran out of cap space. DeBrusk, they decided, would be a trade deadline rental.
I actually agree with him on here, is if you weren't going to retain DeBrusk, and whether, even if you were a fan of DeBrusk, yes or no on that, I do think it was a mismanagement of assets not to at least move him if you're not going to retain him. Because listen, he's done pretty well there. Let me make my a little bigger down here in the corner. He's done well for the Canucks, all things considered, but we got no return on that investment. So while it would have been kind of an indication you're selling at that time last year, it would have at least given you something in return instead of just letting him walk in free agency.
No, he was already on the Bruins team. They must have thought they could do some damage in the playoffs last year and thought it was worth the risk to keep him. Honestly, don't know why they thought that. I get it. I didn't see the Bruins last year as cup contenders. It turns out it wasn't. And recently, we saw Colorado decide they were going to get something for a guy that wasn't resigning instead of losing him for nothing. I know I said I'm going to talk about Marchand, but stay with me here because I think it's all relevant. The Colorado Avalanche traded one of their best players in Mikko Rantanen to the Carolina Hurricanes for Jake Drury and Martin H.S. Chicago stepped in to help them make the deal possible and sent Taylor Hall to Carolina and ate some of the cap space on Rantanen for Carolina. After this deal, it 100% makes Carolina a better team and a cup contender. They were already one before, but this really puts them over the edge. Getting Taylor Hall to play on your third line and Mikko Rantanen, literally one of the best players in the league, doesn't hurt. I also don't think Colorado got a bad return for one of the best players in the league. Colorado came to an impasse with Rantanen and couldn't come to an agreement on a new deal because he was reportedly asking for $14 million per season. Currently, McKinnon makes $12.6 million per year, and the team was supposedly making it clear they wouldn't pay Rantanen more than McKinnon. Colorado got back Natchez,
which they shouldn't. Rantanen's a very, very good player, but he is nowhere to the level. McKinnon's top 2 player in the world. Some people put him over McDavid. I'm not going to get into that conversation, but regardless, it's 1 or 2 with McKinnon and McDavid. He is a generational type talent. McKinnon is just a wonder to watch skate. But, briefly talking about the trade, I already made a video on it, but just to kind of, quickly have a comment on it. I think all things considered, you deal Natchez to the Avs, and I think that first line has the potential with McKinnon, Necas and Drouin to be the best first line in hockey because of the speed and the cycling they can kind of generate in the offensive zone. But you also get another year of control under Necas at $6.1 million, and you're hoping you can retain him. Maybe you pay him $10+ million, but probably not more than McKinnon. Where Rantanen, there has been some reports he could possibly go back to the Avalanche if he doesn't sign with Carolina. I mean, there is a way that this could backfire for Carolina. But I think all things considered, the Avalanche got some assets for an expiring contract, and Carolina went to buy in. So I understood the reasoning behind that move overall for both parties. Just with the Canes, you are concerned. Will they be able to retain Rantanen? You believe he'll be able to be retained, but you never know, man. Maybe he doesn't like Carolina. Maybe he loves it. We got to see how that goes.
Who is no slouch himself. He isn't as good as Rantanen, but in 49 games this year, in Carolina, he has 16 goals and 49 assists. So Colorado didn't replace Rantanen 1-for-1 with regards to production, but they got a very good player back who also has one more year on a deal at $6 million per season. They got him cap certainty and a player they hope can continue scoring in Colorado and keep them competitive. A lot of the times when you see a superstar like this be traded in return isn't much, and you can look back to the Thornton trade when Boston didn't even get close to any value. Like, honestly, San Jose fleeced Boston.
No, they did.
Boston Bruins right now have one of their best players in Brad Marchand playing an expiry deal and has been generating a lot of attention as of late. You can't search the name Brad Marchand without seeing countless articles talking about him being traded. Fluto Shinzawa reported that an executive source said that Brad Marchand trade could occur if the Bruins think it'll help the team. In addition, Shinzawa's source said, when asked if number 63 will be traded, all bets are off. Fluto is one of the most tapped-in Boston Bruins media members, so if he's bringing up, then there's something there. As much as I criticize the Bruins management, they wouldn't be doing their jobs if they didn't look into what the return would be for Brad Marchand.
I would argue, and by the way, if you want to watch his video completely uninterrupted, link is down below in the description, but I'm making a reaction so I can at least add to the conversation here. The problem with moving Brad Marchand is he is your captain, and unless Marchand wants out, and I could be completely wrong on this, I think the Bruins would be like, listen, we have a trade here offer to send you to a contender. I think they'll allow him to say yes or no. It kind of ends up to being, I think, Marchand's decision. Has he regressed as a player this year? Absolutely. But with the amount of surgeries he's had on his body over the years, it's to be expected. But I still feel like in the proper situation, a third line role, Marchand's a valuable player. Does he have the skating speed and the shiftiness he used to have in his prime? No. But I still think he's a quality NHL player that could help a cup contender if he wanted to be moved.
If the Bruins opt to shop Marchand closer to the deadline, there would be undoubtedly a lot of interest. He would instantly shoot to the top of everybody's trade board as the number one guy everybody wants. This is because he is still an impactful player, as he has 17 goals and 37 points in 50 games this season. In addition, his $6.125 million cap hit is affordable for everything he provides. He does have some trade protection, though, as he has an 8-team no-trade list. You have to look at the teams that would be interested in him. And the other factor would be, would Marchand be interested in going to them? Marchand would command a lot in return if the Bruins decided to trade him. I'm not saying Marchand is the same player as Rantanen, but he's a huge part of this team. And if he was traded, like Rantanen, I think it would be because the Bruins don't think they can re-sign him. If the Bruins did trade their captain, it would shake up their locker room, and the city of Boston for that matter. Whether you like it or not, Brad Marchand is a surefire Hall of Famer, and wouldn't be surprised if the Bruins retired his number one day. Fluto had an anonymous source say, putting Marchand on the market would also refresh the roster for today and tomorrow. One agent, granted an enemy, to discuss someone he does not represent, estimated the Bruins could net a second-round pick and a promising young NHL player under team control for Marchand. The price could rise if the Bruins retain part of Marchand's salary. It's
a young player, a promising young player, and a second-round pick for Marchand. And listen, if the Bruins get that, I think that's phenomenal return on investment, depending on what's the definition of a promising young player. Is it just is it a very good prospect that you could see in a top six, or is it like an NHL third, fourth liner prospect down in the AHL or playing juniors or NCAA right now? I mean, it would really it would be interesting to see the definition of that. But a second round pick for Marchand at this stage, I think, is fair enough return. I don't think any team would give up a first round pick for this current version of Brad Marchand. As for him being a hockey Hall of Famer, yeah, I think you can make that argument. When his career is done, you'll have a better kind of full scope of his career and how things went. But he was one of the best wings in the game for a very long time. He helped the Bruins maintain a level of excellence with Bergeron and Krejci when Chara was here for years and years and years. Yeah, he is a Hall of Famer. Number retired in the rafters, we'll see. Bergeron, no doubt. Bergeron, to me, like, that makes sense. Retire the number, all that. Marchand, that's an interesting conversation. It's not because I don't like Marchand, but it's like the jersey retiring is something extremely special for, like, legends of the game. I don't know. I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't be mad at it if he got his number retired. Sorry, just...
It's interesting them mentioning the Bruins could get more if the Bruins retain salary. Many teams, such as Colorado and Vegas, the big contenders you would think would be very interested in Marchand, are tight to the cap. If the Bruins aren't making the playoffs and can get a large return for him, they would be stupid not to retain salary. I know it would piss off the Jacobs, but to get a better return, this is something you might have to do. I mentioned those teams because I think they would be very interested in Marchand for their respective teams. I also think Marchand would be very interested in going to both of them if he was leaving Boston. Marchand has a very close ties with McKinnon in Colorado, so highly unlikely he would not be willing to be traded there. What could Colorado give back in return is another story. They do not have a first-round pick in this year's draft, but they have 2 second-round picks. A guy like Artturi Lehkonen would be a good fit in Boston. He has speed and skill, a knack for scoring goals, and a $4.5 million cap hit until 26-27. Most likely, though, Colorado wouldn't want to move someone on their roster, maybe they might be willing to move Cal Ritchie. Ritchie, the Avalanche's first-round pick, number 27th overall in 2023, put together a dominant season with the Ottawa Generals. The 6-foot center exploded offensively, putting up career high in 80 points. 28 goals, 52 assists in 50 games. This production came alongside a strong plus-minus, plus 45, showcasing his two-way awareness. Now, if I'm the Bruins, I'm going to try and get Lehkonen, but, you never know. I'm just giving options here. These are not people that I've heard. I'm just spitballing and look.
I mean, it's a fair spitball here. It's actually, if you're going to try to get some return, I don't believe they would move anybody on the roster because if they're trying to compete for a Stanley Cup, and this is a problem with the Avalanche, bottom to the third and fourth line, I should say, is there is a lack of some quality depth scoring. Marchand goes to the Avalanche. He adds a little bit of a punch down there, and I think would fit in nice and would not have to play as many minutes as he does in Boston as currently constructed. Do I think they traded Lehkonen? No. As for the prospect that the Ottawa Generals, maybe. If the Avalanche view Marchand as that final piece to get over the top, I would argue I would rather the Avalanche try to get another defenseman, and then if you could additionally add a guy like Marchand, that's in my opinion, they'd be one of the favorites, probably the favorite to come out of the West, especially since they've solved their goaltending issue because Blackwood has been tremendous and Wedgwood's been very good in a backup role. But to be honest, I'm not sure if the Avs are willing to give up a first-round pick for a guy on a one-year deal and a player in Marchand, was one of the best wings in the NHL for a long period of time, is not that guy anymore. He's slowed down a little bit. He's still a quality NHL player, but you're not getting the Brad Marchand in his prime. You're getting a little bit older, a little bit slower version, and are the Avs willing to sell their future to win now? That's kind of the determining factor here. I mean, heck, if the Bruins could get a first-round talent and add even more good prospects into the system, I wouldn't be mad at it. It'd actually be a very good trade because this current iteration of the Bruins, I don't view as a cup contender. I mean, when you get to the playoffs, anything can happen. There's some holes on this roster, and if you can sell some pieces to get future assets that could potentially be top 6 players at the NHL level down the road, I don't think it's a bad idea.
looking at what I would think the Bruins would want in return. When you look at Vegas, you see a Stanley Cup contender and familiarity with regards to the system they play because Marchand's former coach, Bruce Cassidy, is there. Marchand and Cassidy have a very good relationship, and there is no doubt in my mind he would want to play for him again. Vegas doesn't have any first-round picks either, but they do have their second-round pick, and they've never been shy about trading picks or
That's
players.
True.
They have young players like Pavel Dorofeev, who's only 24 and has a ton of speed and skill to his game. He has 21 goals in 49 games this season, but doesn't have any playoff experience like Brad Marchand. He would instantly be that scoring winger with speed the Bruins need and isn't an RFA until 26-27, and he's only making $1.8 million per season. Dorofeev would be exactly the type of player the Bruins should be trying to get on their roster from the Vegas Golden Knights. These are just examples of teams and the type of players you should expect the Bruins to command in return for Marchand if they wanted to trade him. The Bruins could very well re-sign Marchand even after trading him, like Keith Tkachuk did back in the day with St. Louis. I personally think Marchand wants to be a Bruin for life and wants to retire a Boston Bruin. I also believe my good friend Dom when he says he hears Marchand and the Bruins already have kind of got a deal done and both parties want to get it done. I don't believe they're far apart on anything with regards to term or dollar amount. I believe they're waiting for the offseason and they'll get the deal done once they see what their cap is next year and what else they can do this offseason or even at the trade deadline this year. I just don't want to rule out the team actually trading him because we know big name players can get moved. If Wayne Gretzky can be traded, anyone can be traded.
Fair.
I think Marchand has earned the right to decide his own fate, but the Bruins management has to be smart enough to listen to offers. What Marchand brings in the playoffs year in and year out, every team would want. I would say he's less likely to actually be traded, but that's just my opinion. I want to hear from you, though. Should the Boston Bruins trade Brad Marchand if they don't make the playoffs? Or should they trade him if they don't think they can re-sign him? That's a wrap on today's video. To stay up to date on all the news surrounding the Boston Bruins, please subscribe and drop me a like. If news breaks surrounding the Boston Bruins, be sure to check out the channel. If you've already subscribed to the channel, thank you, and I'll see you next time.
He makes very good videos. That was very, very well done. Very, very well done. Make sure to check out the original video. I think he did a bang-up job. He makes great videos. So, do I believe the Bruins should trade Brad Marchand? I mean, if you can get future assets, sure, and they're quality assets. Do I think it actually happens? Probably not. Just because the Bruins do respect legacy, and they do respect guys who've been there, done that for the organization. And he's on the last year of his deal. He's the captain of the team. Unless some crazy offer comes down, and then the Bruins kind of have a wink-wink, nudge-nudge deal with Marchand. Like, yeah, go play there for 30 games or so and then come back. But I think the C means a lot to Marchand. I think following in Bergeron's footsteps, a guy that he idolized and he loves a lot, truly means the world to him. So I don't think he moves, but if for some reason it did happen that the Bruins were able to have a trade happen where you get some really good prospect and a draft pick, I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world. But let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. What would you think of this move? And I gotta say, Bruins diehard, very good video. Love your channel and keep up the good work. So I'm Captain Paul. I'll see you in the next one.